Hello, welcome. Let's talk autumn knitting plans today. I'm afraid this might not be the most cozy full knitting plans video ever made because I'm actually going to be traveling for most of the autumn and I'm not going to be experiencing sweater weather, which I'm very excited about. And a lot of my knitting plans kind of reflect this. A lot of these ideas are an extension of what I wanted to do in the summer. I find making these videos really useful for myself and I tend to refer back to these throughout the course of the season to see what I've already made and what I still want to make. And with that, I want to touch on a few of the ideas that I mentioned in my summer knitting plans that I haven't yet made and what my intentions with those are. I brought up the idea of wanting to make a bikini and I've decided to no longer go ahead with that, partially because I've recently bought a few new pieces of swimwear that are more than sufficient, and also because I mainly just wanted to make a bikini so that I could try Chamade's lycra yarn. It seems like a completely unique yarn and I want to have the experience of working with it, but they also have a super small colour range. A few months ago I thought that the shade of red that they do would work for me, but looking at it now, it's a really pinky toned burgundy colour and that's not my shade of red at all. So I'm putting this on ice. I may revisit it next summer, maybe if this brand comes out with more colours of the yarn or if another yarn brand comes out with a similar swimsuit type material. I'll think about this again. I also previously expressed my interest in wanting to make the Ophelia tank by Sarkos Knits and the silhouette top by Licka Knit. I already have the patterns and the yarns to make these tops, but I've been put off casting them on. I think it's something to do with the cut of the tops. I have some really expensive 100% silk yarn set aside for the Ophelia tank, but I think the Ophelia tank is too feminine of a style for me right now and I want to use that yarn for something that I will wear a lot. I recently saw Made by Roche put up a picture of a top that they called the Stockholm square neck. They haven't released the pattern yet, but I think a top like that works with my style better, and especially because these are fingering weight projects, they are going to take such a long time, and if I'm going to pour that many hours into a project, I want it to be something that I know I'm going to wear. Similarly with the silhouette top, I just don't think the neckline's for me. It's a really high tight neckline with no collar and I just don't think it'll suit me, so that's not getting made either. Now getting onto the patterns that I do want to make, I do also have a few rollovers from my summer knitting plans, but at the time they were quite vague ideas and I now have a much clearer vision of the pieces that I want to make. Starting off with the crochet bandana, I think this is going to be a perfect piece for me to make and wear while I'm on holiday. I looked all summer for a pattern that really spoke to me and couldn't find one, but then I was watching Katie Snooks' podcast, I think last week, and she showed my perfect bandana, and it's not even crochet, it's knitted, which I would prefer. She self-drafted the pattern and is in the process of writing it, so I'm just gonna impatiently wait for her to put that out. I'm gonna be first in line for the tester call. She also mentioned that she made it with one bowl of Drops Bell, and I have a full bowl of white Drops Bell in my stash, so it's just stars aligning, the perfect make. It's going to be worth the wait. Next is the Twister Tank by Juicy Loose. I mentioned this as a maybe in my summer knitting plans because I thought it was a fingering weight project, but it's not. It's DK, and the more I see this, the more people I see making this, the more I really want a version of it for myself. I think it's going to fit right in to what I like to wear, and it's another item that I can make and wear while I'm on holiday. The last idea that I didn't get around to making last season was some sort of tight-fitting blouse with some sort of colour work in it. I think that was my vague idea and I've really narrowed down the vision. I know exactly what I want to make now. So I want to make a blouse number 1 by My Favourite Things Knitwear. I've already made one, I already have the pattern. It's like a boat neck tight-fitting top with a bit of a flare sleeve and a contiguous shoulder construction. DK weight also. I remember the first time I knitted it, I had to size down my needles from 5mm to 4mm. And for my colour work on the front and my colour scheme, I'm going to be picking this directly off of my Knitting Inspo mood board that I shared last week, I think. And I'm going to be doing some sort of tattoo style butterfly on the front in a bright acid green or an olive green, and then have the base of the blouse be a charcoal grey. I don't yet have a yarn in mind for this. It's a really close tight-fitting top, so I think I'm going to have to be very wary of any potential itchiness of yarn, because with an item of clothing like that, there's no hiding from it if it's itchy. I love love how colourwork looks when the stitch definition isn't super distinct and the colours like bleed into each other. So maybe just for the butterfly, I'll use a fluffy yarn or add a strand of mohair so it can have that effect. But for the majority of the blouse, I think because I want to be able to wear it in winter, I should go for wool. And to minimise itch, I'll probably go for like a superwash merino. I've never used Cascade yarn and I've heard such good things. I think Cascade Heritage is their superwash. So maybe this will be the project that I finally get to try that out. Now I think that that covers everything that I mentioned previously that I haven't at least started on. And everything that's left is brand new, never before seen ideas. My first plan focuses solely on trying to get rid of this yarn. This is a Sayer Japansk Bemold. It's fingering weight, 100% cotton, kind of a weird texture. You may have seen this before because I worked with it in the spring to create a crochet tote bag. And when I bought this from a yarn shop, I asked their advice on how many balls I should buy, and they were way off with their estimate. This is quite expensive yarn and it's a really nice cotton, so I want to do something more with this, and my idea is to make a crochet bucket hat. I have never owned a bucket hat before. I am certain that the fabric versions don't suit me, but I've seen a few really nice crochet versions that I think could look good. I have the exact same intentions as I do with the bandana. I just want to try and stop my scalp getting sunburnt. So even if it doesn't end up suiting me, at least it will be practical. I haven't even begun to look up bucket hat patterns, so if you know of any, if you've made any, I'm very open to suggestions and it will be good to put this yarn to some good use. This next idea came to me in a bit of a convoluted way and ended up becoming two ideas. So I'm going to tell you how this came to me chronologically. It started off with me poaching someone else's idea on Instagram to use certain colours of a certain yarn. Someone messaged me that they were making a petite knit Olga sweater with 3 colours of Drops Bell, including a greeny grey, a pinkish white and a warm beige, which I absolutely love the look of. It immediately sent me to Wool Warehouse, where I was like adding a million different shades of Drops Bell to my basket, thinking about how well these colours would pair with other colours, and got really carried away with this colour palette, and I really wanted to use it to make something that had some beautiful colour work. I immediately thought of the Rumble Raglan by Lydia Morrow because the colour work for that top is just beautiful and I would love to recreate it, but the fit of that top itself I know is not for me and my preferences. So then I started looking at some sweater patterns with similar colour work. I mentioned in a pattern roundup video the Micas sweater, which is a free pattern for a drop shoulder sweater, very similar colour work to the Rumble Raglan, but it looks like it's 1x1 colour changes instead of 2x2. So if I just switched the colour changes to be 2x2, I could probably get a very similar effect to the Rumble Raglan. I also looked at the off-grid sweater pattern, which has really, really beautiful colour work. And every single photo I see of that sweater, I am in awe of. But both of those patterns weren't really calling to me, and I think it was because they were oversized. And the idea in my head is for something with this colour work to be quite a tight-fitted garment. Then I remembered the QTT by Knit Slip, which is a pattern that I have admired for over a year, and I think recently has had some updates so it's easier to follow. And I thought, you know what, that with those 2 first colours of Drops Bell and none of the 50 additional colours I had added to my Wool Warehouse basket would be perfect. I especially love how this top looks when the contrast colour is a lighter colour and you get the lines of the raglan stitches being highlighted in the light colour. I also really like vertical striping in colour work, so I think that that fits one of the bills that I'm trying to fulfill. My only worry is that Drops Bell is a cotton linen viscose blend, and every version of the QTT that I've seen has been made in wool, which is much stretchier than Drops Bell would be. And especially with all the floats from the colour work and it already being quite a tight-fitting garment, I'm worried I'm not going to be able to like get it over my shoulders. So if anyone's knitted the QTT in any sort of plant fibre, I would love to hear about your experience with it. I then went back to look at the colour work on the Rumble Raglan and the Mica sweater, and I still want to make something with this beautiful intricate like 5-shade colour scheme, and I think what I really want is for it to be quite a close-fitting zip-up or tie-up sweater. I have seen so many patterns for zip-up sweaters, but they're all raglan. I haven't seen any drop shoulder or contiguous sleeve zip-up patterns. I might just self-draft this. It might be a bit difficult to work out how the colour work is gonna work out with the German short rows to shape the back. Maybe in the next month or so I'll be able to find a pattern that I can adapt to make this vision that I've got. I have another vision that I think I'm gonna have to freehand. I have some DK Hobby black cotton silk that I want to use to make a top, and I really want to replicate the cut of a few fabric tops that I've seen where they have quite a substantial cutout in the front and then a little bow or a clasp at the neck to bring it together. Amazingish Grace released a crochet pattern this summer. I think it's filet crochet, but it has the same kind of neckline that I want to imitate. It doesn't seem that difficult. I think I would just have to play around with the increases around here a lot and do a lot of trial and a lot of error, neither of which I like. But that's what I get for wanting something for which there is no pattern already. I'm gonna add the sweater that I'm gonna make for my mum's Christmas present into my autumn knitting plans because I really want to get a head start on this. I don't want it to get to like the 1st of December and I'm only just starting to knit this sweater. I have the yarn, I think I showed it in a podcast. This is the swatch for the sweater and this is the yarn that I'm using. It's Drops Soft Tweed and Drops Kid Silk. For the design of the sweater, we brainstormed it together. I got out all of my sweaters that I've ever knit and I had her point out which features she liked on each. And we basically settled on me making the Lindgren sweater by Knitting for Olive, but with different colour work. So I'm basically just going to be knitting that pattern, but making it a lot longer, like tunic length. And instead of the Lindgren sweater colourwork, I'm going to be doing the colourwork from my Little Lies sweater by Wool and the Gang, which is like a slip stitch design that's just over the bust and the cuffs. And she also wants a very thin line of colourwork drooping from the shoulders. So I'm excited to work on that. It's on 6mm needles, which I think is my very favourite needle size. If I do have a favourite needle size, I really prefer like 5 and 6mm needles, and the yarn also felt really good when I was knitting up my swatch, so that's going to probably be quite an enjoyable mindless knit. I do have one more plan that's a bit of a maybe because I don't think I'm realistically going to get around to it after I've knitted all of the rest of this, but I did receive the yarn for it today, so I want to show you it. This is my Knitting for Olive order that I made on the day that they were donating all of their proceeds to UNICEF for their Gaza appeal. And while we're on the topic, I do quickly want to plug that I have hard launched my website and all of my handmade knits that I'm selling are now live there to buy, with all profits going to the Samir Project, who are doing wonderful work in Gaza. I also have a section on my website dedicated to advertising other knitters' eBay listings if you are moved to do the same. This is my Knitting for Olive yarn. This is 3 skeins of the soft silk mohair in the colour Pearl Grey. This is my first time working with Knitting for Olive mohair, so I'm hoping for good things. Often when I mention how sensitive my skin is and how I find most mohair scratchy, I have people recommending specifically this mohair as the softest that they've ever worked with. So I thought at some point I should give it a try, and I got this to hold with the rest of my Wee County Yarns Kinross floor ply. I had 6 skeins of this because I initially thought that I wanted to hold it double, but instead I used 3 skeins to make the Feminine Zila cardigan held together with some drops brushed alpaca silk, and I thought that I might as well use the other 3 skeins to tick off a big thing in my 2025 knitting mood board, which is make a basic sweater. I knit a lot, but one thing that I don't make are basic sweaters. I made the Breezy Long Sleeve by Kiss Kiss Rhinestones last November. That is one of very few items of clothing that I've made that you could count as a basic sweater, and it's one of my most worn handmade pieces. I haven't yet settled on a pattern. I really like a look of a lot of Ozetta's stuff. That is one very viable option, but my other option is self-drafting a contiguous sleeve or drop shoulder zip up. I think I should hold off on that until I've made all the other zip ups in my plans and then see if I still want more after that. And those are my plans for the autumn. Thank you so much for watching. I've loved sharing this with you. I hope you're having a lovely day and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!